Welcome back to our channel, your ultimate source for everything, Genoa City. Today is a beautiful day to dive deep into the dramatic twists and turns of our favorite daytime soap. We have a lot of explosive updates to unpack today, so grab your coffee, settle in, and let's explore the shocking realities and massive fan frustrations currently unfolding on your screens. The very foundation of Genoa City is currently trembling under the weight of a shocking narrative choice that has left audiences completely appalled. The tension has reached a boiling point, culminating in a scandalous, boundary-crossing romance that fans are loudly condemning as the stupidest and most incestuous storyline in recent memory. We are, of course, talking about the deeply unsettling dynamic developing between Kyle Abbott and Victoria Newman. The sheer audacity of the writers to push Victoria into the arms of Kyle, the former lover of her own daughter, Claire Newman, has ignited a massive firestorm of outrage across social media. Viewers watched in sheer disbelief as Kyle and Victoria shared intimate moments at the Genoa City Athletic Club, their lingering touches and whispered confessions paving the way for a forbidden kiss. The psychological implications of this pairing are staggering, threatening to obliterate the fragile trust Victoria has painstakingly built with her traumatized daughter. How can a mother commit such an unforgivable betrayal against her own flesh and blood? The emotional devastation of this storyline is not just a passing controversy. It is a profound character assassination that is tearing the Newman family apart. Claire Newman, who has already survived the horrific psychological abuse of her Aunt Jordan, is now being subjected to a cruel and unusual punishment by the very writers who promised her a redemption arc. Imagine the visceral horror Claire experiences when she realizes her mother is crossing romantic boundaries with the man she once loved. Fans are furious that the writers are prioritizing shock value over genuine emotional storytelling, sacrificing Victoria's maternal integrity on the altar of cheap thrills. The once formidable Newman executive is now being reduced to a woman driven by reckless, inappropriate lust, completely ignoring the devastating collateral damage. Will Claire ever be able to look at her mother the same way again, or has this twisted romance permanently severed their familial bond? As if the scandalous romances weren't enough to frustrate the loyal audience, the relentless, exhausting character loops are pushing fans to the brink of abandonment. Billy Abbott stands at the absolute center of this narrative stagnation. For a fleeting, beautiful moment, it seemed Billy was finally on the precipice of genuine growth. His engagement to Sally Spectra and the revelation of her pregnancy offered a beacon of hope, a chance for Billy to shed his reckless past and embrace the responsibilities of fatherhood. Yet, in a move that has left viewers groaning in collective despair, the writers have violently yanked the steering wheel, plunging Billy right back into his toxic, obsessive corporate warfare. Instead of focusing on his growing family and the fragile, high-risk nature of Sally's pregnancy, Billy is once again consumed by his bitter vendetta over Chancellor Industries. Why do the writers insist on sabotaging Billy's happiness every single time he inches closer to the light? Billy's regression is not just a personal failure. It is a destructive force that is obliterating the lives of everyone around him. Driven by a petty, vindictive need to reclaim Chancellor from Lily Winters and Kane Ashby, Billy has crossed lines that should never be crossed. Viewers were forced to watch in absolute dismay as Billy publicly humiliated Kane at a major corporate event, exposing Kane's secret dealings with Victor Newman and completely shattering Lily's fragile trust. The sheer cruelty of Billy's actions, sacrificing his own family's stability just to score a corporate victory, proves that he has learned absolutely nothing from his past tragedies. Fans are tired of investing their emotions into Billy's redemption, only to have the rug pulled out from under them time and time again. Is Billy Abbott fundamentally incapable of change, destined to forever be the architect of his own misery? Beyond the frustrating character regressions, the fandom is currently suffocating under the overwhelming, inescapable presence of recycled, highly irritating villains. Matt Clark's reign of terror has stretched far beyond the limits of narrative logic, transforming the show into an exhausting spectacle of trauma porn. Matt's fake amnesia plotline was already a stretch, but his subsequent actions in Las Vegas have pushed the boundaries of believability into the realm of the absurd. He has managed to outsmart Victor Newman's elite security, kidnap Sharon and Noah Newman, and trap Nick and Adam in a deadly, explosive game of cat and mouse at an abandoned gas station. The fact that a single rogue criminal can continuously outmaneuver the most powerful families in Genoa City is an insult to the audience's intelligence. How many more explosions, kidnappings, and near-death experiences must we endure before Matt Clark finally faces true justice? The sheer brutality of Matt Clark's actions is leaving a dark, uncomfortable stain on the series. The harrowing scenes in the underground bunker, where Matt forced Nick and Adam to watch their loved ones suffer via security monitors, felt unnecessarily sadistic. Furthermore, Matt's psychological torture of Nick intentionally feeding his fentanyl addiction with laced drugs to induce a fatal overdose crosses a line from dramatic tension into sheer cruelty. Viewers are exhausted by the constant victimization of legacy characters for the sake of elevating a villain who should have been written off months ago. Sienna Bacall's desperate, violent attempt to kill Matt with a rock in the desert seemed like the perfect, poetic end to his reign. Yet the writers miraculously resurrected him, allowing him to crawl out of the desert to exact more revenge. Will this relentless cycle of violence ever conclude, or are the Newmans doomed to be Matt Clark's eternal punching bags? Equally infuriating is the omnipresent, deeply annoying resurgence of Patty Williams. Much like Matt Clark, Patty has overstayed her welcome, hijacking the screen time of beloved legacy characters with her delusional, repetitive schemes. Her current alliance with the sinister doctor, Lawrence Markham, to keep Diane Jenkins hostage in a remote, heavily guarded location, is a storyline that is dragging at a glacial pace. Fans are incredibly frustrated by Patty's seemingly magical ability to anticipate every single move made by the Abbott family. When Jack and Kyle formulated a brilliant, daring plan to lure Dr. Markham away and rescue Diane, Patty somehow managed to eavesdrop, intercept the plot, and move Diane to an even more secure facility. Why is a woman with such a profound history of severe psychiatric instability suddenly written as an omniscient, untouchable mastermind? Patty's psychological warfare against Jack Abbott is not just tedious, it is deeply uncomfortable to watch. The scenes where she breaks into the Abbott mansion, casually displaying photos of an unconscious Diane to a desperate Jack, are dripping with a toxic, unearned arrogance. Patty's delusional demands forcing Jack to surrender his corporate power and engage in a twisted, romantic charade just to keep his wife alive are repetitive echoes of storylines we have seen a dozen times before. The audience is crying out for Jack to finally turn the tables, to use his legendary intellect to crush Patty's delusions once and for all. Instead, Jack is portrayed as a helpless, reactive victim, constantly bowing to the whims of a madwoman. How long will the writers allow Patty to hold the entire Abbott family hostage with her psychotic fantasies before someone finally puts an end to her madness? This brings us to the most profound, overarching grievance echoing across the fandom. The blatant, unapologetic disrespect for the rich, decades-long history of Genoa City. Veteran viewers feel a deep sense of betrayal as the current writing regime systematically dismantles the core traits of legendary characters. Take Victor Newman, for example. The Victor of the past was a brilliant, strategic mastermind who destroyed his enemies through cunning business acumen and sheer force of will. Today, the writers have reduced the great Victor Newman to a man who relies on cheap, unrealistic artificial intelligence programs to generate fake emails and frame his rivals, Phyllis Summers and Kane Ashby. This sci-fi deep-fake storyline feels entirely out of place in a grounded soap opera and fundamentally betrays Victor's historic modus operandi. Are the writers so devoid of creative corporate espionage ideas that they must resort to absurd technological gimmicks to push the plot forward? Jack Abbott's legacy is suffering a similar, tragic, deconstruction. For decades, Jack has been portrayed as a formidable, sharp-witted patriarch, a man capable of going toe-to-toe with Victor Newman in the boardroom and the battlefield. Yet, in the current narrative, Jack is being written as incredibly naive, constantly falling for Patty Williams's blatant manipulations and Diane's historical deceits. The fact that Jack would ever entertain a nuclear option of faking a romance with Nikki Newman just to make Diane jealous is a regression to the behavior of a reckless teenager, not a seasoned billionaire. Fans are watching in horror as the intelligent, commanding Jack Abbott is stripped of his dignity, reduced to a pawn in a poorly constructed romantic farce. When will the writers remember the brilliant tactician Jack used to be and restore the respect his character commands? Even the deeply emotional, high-stakes storylines are being tainted by historical inconsistencies and unnecessary cruelty. Nikki Newman's diagnosis of a fast-growing, terminal brain tumor should be a unifying, tear-jerking narrative that honors her incredible strength. Instead, the storyline has been hijacked by betrayals that fracture the core Newman bonds. Victoria's decision to break her solemn vow of secrecy and expose Nikki's diagnosis to Victor was a massive violation of Nikki's autonomy. While Victoria's desperation is palpable, the subsequent fallout, Victor's initial controlling ultimatums, and Nikki's furious, heartbroken reaction feels like a rehash of their most toxic historical cycles. The audience wants to see the Newmans rally together with profound love, not tear each other apart over broken promises in the face of death. Can Victor and Nikki truly heal their deeply fractured relationship before the clock runs out on her fragile life? The tragic ruin of Phyllis Summers is another glaring example of the writers fundamentally misunderstanding their characters. Phyllis has always been a fierce, independent survivor, a woman who rises from the ashes of her mistakes with renewed fire. However, the current storyline has isolated her, stripping away her agency and reducing her to a paranoid, delusional mess. Watching Phyllis lock herself in a hotel room, muttering to her own portrait, and desperately trying to manipulate an amnesiac, Matt Clark is a painful departure from the brilliant strategist she once was. Her alienation from her son Daniel and her reckless legal battles with Christine Ramalotti feel less like compelling drama and more like a systematic dismantling of her legacy. Will the writers ever allow Phyllis to reclaim her fiery, triumphant spirit, or is she destined to fade away in a prison of her own making? The collective frustration of the Y&R fandom has reached a critical, undeniable breaking point. The toxic combination of incestuous romantic pairings, the exhausting repetition of character loops, the suffocating screen time dedicated to unkillable villains, and the blatant disregard for Genoa City's storied history has created a narrative crisis. Viewers tune into soap operas for escapism, romance, and logical, character-driven drama, not for a relentless barrage of trauma, absurdity, and historical retcons. The loud, passionate outcries on social media are a desperate plea for the showrunners to course correct, to return to the roots of what made these families so iconic in the first place. If the writers continue to push these deeply unpopular, controversial narratives, they risk alienating the very audience that has kept the show alive for decades. What will it take for the creative team to finally listen to the loyal fans and deliver the quality storytelling they deserve? As the dark clouds continue to gather over Genoa City, the fate of our beloved characters hangs precariously in the balance. The Abbott and Newman families are trapped in a treacherous web of lies, amnesia,